Hello, class. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about what is expected for SA2. In order to help you understand what's expected for SA2, I'm going to show you a sample essay that I wrote that follows the formula that I have created, which I will also show you today. And this, I think, will make the prospect of writing the second essay much less daunting. So if you'll recall, the object of the first essay was to select one of the required rhetorical strategies and to execute a 3-page essay using that specific strategy. The second essay asks you to mix strategies using 3 specific strategies. Those are persuasion, argumentation, and exemplification. So it's a little bit different. We go from 1 strategy for 3 pages to 3 strategies in 1. So it's going to be a little bit different. Now, exemplification is the one that we need to mention, I think, the most. Exemplification is the use of secondary sources. Secondary sources must be credible. They must follow the rules and guidelines of academic credibility, which, of course, I will inform you about. And you must find those sources and incorporate them into your essay in such a way that they help to prove the argument that you're putting forth. Now, the other 2 strategies, argumentation and persuasion, are very closely related. In fact, some people might even say that they're the same strategy, but there are some subtle differences, some nuanced differences that make them not quite the same thing. And so it's important to understand all of these strategies separately so that we can understand how to integrate them for the second essay. So remember, you're going to be picking an argumentative topic. It can be pretty much anything. It's largely open-ended. There are some restrictions to the topics, and the restrictions are sort of vague, but it's basically nothing that you've heard 1,000 times. All of the knee-jerk arguments that you've heard 1,000 times are off the table. I want you to push yourself. Mainly, I want you to let the research that you do be the guide in this process, which it can be difficult because probably most of you have never done any research before. And if you have, you don't really have the kind of experience in it that would make you comfortable executing a paper like this. But it's okay. I told you we were taking the training wheels off, and we are. So I want to go ahead and give you a secret little thing of my own, okay? So this is my specific formula for the thesis and topic sentences for the second essay. Now, you are going to read your textbook, and your textbook is going to have its own things to say about how to go about the writing process, and that's just fine. We don't really have to disagree too heavily on that front. But for the purposes of integrating all 3 of these strategies, I have my own formula that I want to show you. And if you plug in the formula, it makes it way, way easier. So the formula that I want to give you is problem, and I will make this a little bigger, solution, and so what. Now, these 3 elements are the elements that make up a good argumentative essay. Now, when I say problem, what do I mean by that? Well, the best essays that I get are the ones where students address the topic as though they were trying to pick a problem to solve. The reason that I assign this essay really is because I want to get you thinking about how to solve problems, right? We have a society, things about it work fairly well, some other things about it really don't. And there are quite a few problems. There are lots of things in our society that could use revamping, that could use a fresh perspective, and that need fixing, right? And so that's the best way to go about picking a topic. What sort of problem do you see? And remember, the next thing is solution. So you're going to be offering a solution to the problem that you've identified as your topic. The last thing, so what? This is, why should this matter? Why does this matter to us? What is important about this particular problem and the solution that you're offering that is going to make our lives better and that is going to set things right in a sense? So this formula is very easy to follow. Now, a couple of years ago, I had a student who was really struggling with finding a topic. And I have a lot of students that struggle with topics. A lot of times people just aren't very political, or not really political, but they don't really think about current issues and things like that and stuff they want to solve. It doesn't have to be political. I didn't mean to say that like that. But a lot of people just don't think of about that kind of stuff. And if you're one of those people, that's okay. In fact, you're probably a lot happier than those of us who do spend a lot of time thinking about stuff that we can't control. But in any case, it can be difficult sometimes for students to select a topic. So I had this student, she was in the healthcare field. And I was wondering, like, is there anything in the healthcare field? I said, do you see any problems in the healthcare field that need addressing that you could offer solutions to? And then she goes, well, yeah, there's a blood shortage. And I said, that's perfect. Blood shortage, that's perfect. We were like, what do I want to write my paper on? How to fix the blood shortage. What are some ways that we could go about doing it? So that was the first step, identifying the problem. The next step was offering a solution. So she came up with a series of different solutions. Now, when you're coming up with a solution for your problem, you need to avoid what I call the personal accountability solutions. So I'll give you an example of a personal accountability solution, and this is just tongue-in-cheek, so it's not meant to be taken seriously. But if the problem is homelessness, then the solution in a sort of wrong way of framing it would be that everyone should just buy homes, and that will solve the solution of homelessness. That's like a personal accountability solution. Well, if people would just buy homes, if they would just get their act together and save enough money and buy homes, then the homelessness problem would go away. Well, of course. And if we could wave a magic wand, we could fix any number of problems. But that doesn't really help us when we're actually trying to fix the problem of homelessness. How do we get it to where people can afford homes? Or how do we get people access to housing? And so that's a much more difficult answer to give. You actually have to think about that. Like, what are some things you could do? So this particular student who wrote about the blood shortage offered a series of solutions. I don't exactly remember what they are, but I think they were along the lines of incentivizing blood donations. And that means, like, giving, like, I don't know, cookies, or sometimes they pay people for plasma, Another incentive she had, another thing she had was increase federal funding for blood drive vans. So we could, excuse me, we could use taxpayer money to buy blood donation vans. And the more vans we have, the more access points for people to give blood. We could increase the supply that way. And then her final solution, if I remember correctly, was to lift certain restrictions on people who could give blood. And she actually, I learned a lot from her because I didn't know. Needles kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. I feel bad about it. I really should give blood more often, but it just really bothers me. So I learned a lot from her because I didn't know very much about giving blood and how that's done and who can give blood and who can't. And there are some restrictions that maybe could be lifted. And that would increase the blood supply. So those were her solutions. Now, you notice she had a 3-tiered solution. So she offered, because of the blood shortage, we should do X, Y, and Z. And then the last thing she did to finish her thesis statement was to tack on the so what factor. Now, the so what factor is, why should we care about the blood shortage? Well, everyone is going to need blood, right? Eventually. Well, knock on wood, but I mean, that's the way life goes, right? So the so what factor is, this is a huge social problem that we need to fix. And if we did go about fixing it, we could actually save people's lives. There isn't a better so what factor than saving people's lives, right? That is about as so what as it gets. So those 3 things, she was able to craft a thesis statement using problem, solution, so what. And it went something like this. Due to the problem of the blood drive, we should increase the number of blood donation vans. We should lift restrictions on who can donate blood. And what was the last one? Incentivize blood donation so that in the future, lives could be saved. Okay, it was something like that. Now, that's a little bit wordy. You can trim it down. There are ways that you can doctor it. But you follow that formula and you just lay it out. Then you think about the topic sentences. Okay, what do you do with the topic sentences? Well, you take each of those solutions that she offered and you do a separate topic sentence about that specific solution. So you could just state the same problem using different words, of course, offer a differing solution and a slightly differing so what factor perhaps, and that gives you a little bit of variance. So you can split off the topic sentences, and lo and behold, that's how you do it. Once you have the topic sentences in place, that make these claims, due to this, we should do this, and therefore, so what factor? Then you provide the evidence. So let's say that our student was talking about increasing the number of blood donation vans. Okay, so do some research. Go and find out how many vans are there. How much blood can one van harvest? How much van one blood harvest? Yeah, so just look up stuff like are the vans in short supply? How much do they cost? Anything that could help you make the argument. So let's say you did some research and you found that communities that had these donation vans in abundance were much better able to meet the blood supply. Now that would be after a lot of digging on Galileo and really trying hard to find the source. But if you found a source like that, you could then use that as evidence to prove the claim that you put forth about the blood donation vans. And then all you have to do is explain the evidence in your own words. So the solution, another formula, so once you do that, this is for thesis statements and topic sentences. Once you have your topic sentences and you want to do your body paragraphs, you follow this formula. I'm not very tech savvy, you guys. I don't know if you've noticed this. It's kind of bad when you're an online teacher and computers are your worst enemy, but that's me. And I'm sure some of you can relate. And then there are others of you who are like, wow, what a dump. Okay, so then what I always say is you pee on the paper. Now, yeah, that's a little juvenile, okay, a little bit of 5-year-old humor for you. I think we can handle it. The first P stands for present the topic sentence. The first E stands for evidence the claim. And then the final E stands for explain the evidence. Now, why do you have to explain the evidence? This is how we do, I'm going to say body paragraphs for argumentation. Okay, this is the formula. Now, hopefully you all can see this. My apologies. All right. So you present the topic sentence. Now that's going to follow problem, solution, so what, but it's going to be on a more focused scale. So one of the solutions maybe. Then you're going to provide evidence. So you're going to go on Galileo and other databases, and you're going to find scholarly credible evidence that you can use to provide evidence using the exemplification strategy, right? That's the providing of evidence and examples to prove your claim. Right, because it's all about proving claims, putting forth the claim and then providing proof. Right, that's how you have to. When your mother asks you if you stole the cookie from the cookie jar, you say no, and she said prove it. You got to be able to show mom that it wasn't you, it was your brother. Right, so you got to evidence the claim. Then you're going to explain the evidence in your own words. Okay, now why do you have to explain it in your own words? I use an example to make this clear. The example is called the bloody knife example, okay? And it's a little bit visceral, this image, but, that's the way it goes. So imagine that we were in an in-person class, okay? And we all walked into the room and there was a bloody knife on the table. What happened? Now, I have asked this in class. I'll say, imagine there's a bloody knife on the table. What do you think happened? Invariably, somebody always goes, ooh, there was a murder. And then I say, okay, are you sure? Well, maybe not, right? Because what are the other possibilities for a bloody knife? Maybe somebody cut themselves, right? And they left it there at the end of the bathroom to get some paper towels. Maybe it's a prop for the drama club, right? Maybe it's the knife that Juliet stabs herself with in the end of Romeo and Juliet, and it's just sitting there and the blood is fake and there's no reason to be alarmed. Or maybe there's a murderer on the loose and we all need to run away. Either one of these is possible, but we don't actually know until someone takes it upon themselves to go, oh yeah, that's my knife. I accidentally cut myself. Sorry, I'll put it away. I don't know why I brought it inside anyway. Or something like that. And then we have the explanation of the evidence. And that's how we know. Now, when we write essays, a lot of times we think the evidence will speak for itself. I will provide evidence to my reader, and they will see what I see in the evidence. Not necessarily so. Some people could walk in and see the bloody knife and assume the worst. Other people could walk in and just be like, huh, that's weird. Other people could walk in and go, oh, are we doing drama today? Is it Shakespeare time? Right? You don't know necessarily what the reaction is going to be. So you do actually need to spoon feed it to your reader. Explain the evidence. So other than that, I mean, you still have hook, line, and sinker, right? Hook, line, sinker. The sinker follows problem, solution, so what. Then you split that thesis into 3 topic sentences. Then you evidence those topic sentences using secondary sources. Then you explain the evidence. Finally, you provide a conclusion wherein you do not repeat yourself. As I have said, I'm repeating myself, which is a little bit ironic. But and that is essentially the formula. Now, I know that was kind of all over the place. So what I want to do is show you an essay that I wrote. Now, this essay is called Poultry for POTUS. I may have mentioned this to you all before. I'm not sure. But as a hobby, I raise poultry. I have a special type of chicken called a Polish crested chicken. And they're very funny looking. They have feathers on their head. They're just ridiculous. And I've been raising them for a while to get the eggs and stuff. And it's been fun. You know, it's something that I like to do. And so I have these chickens and they're really funny to look at. So I like to show them off. And so I wrote this essay. Now I have a rooster named Oscar Goldman. Okay. Don't ask me where I got the name. I have a place that I got it from, but I'm just going to leave it at Oscar Goldman. And he is a beautiful bird, and I've had him for a while. But I started thinking during one of the political cycles, I think it was 2016, which if you remember the election of 2016, it was really ugly. It was just a really horrible point in American politics, a very toxic environment, not a good thing. And I was feeling very frustrated with all of it and just not interested and just wishing that it would all just be different. And I started thinking, well, you know, maybe my rooster could run for president. He'd probably do a better job. And then it dawned on me, like, oh, I could write a sample argumentative essay about why my rooster should be elected president. And this is what's called a satire, okay? And this is an important word that you're going to need to know later. Satire is basically the use of humor, irony, or ridicule in order to make a certain point, usually a social or political one. So I'm using humor in this case. Obviously, I don't really want my rooster to be president because we would all be killed somehow, I'm sure. But I'm using this to prove a point, but I have followed the structure exactly as I just laid it out for you in the previous explanation. I did hook, line, and sinker, problem, solution, so what, and P on the paper. Present, explain, examples. Or I'm sorry, present, evidence, explain. Excuse me, I screwed it up. So I'll read this to you, and then I'll break it down. And you'll see that everything in this essay is formulaic, and it is all plugged in right where it's supposed to go. And if you follow this formula for your essay, you will do well. Now, of course, this is going to differ somewhat. This whole thing that I'm telling you right here is going to differ somewhat from your textbook. That's okay. In writing, there isn't one way to do everything. It's not like physics. In physics, there's one right answer. In writing, it's like, well, you know, you can do this for this effect or this for that effect. It just depends on what you want and how you want to go about doing it. So there are all kinds of different ways that we could put forth an argumentative essay. But this is my own personal formula, and I highly recommend that students use it, because if you do, I think it's going to end up being a lot easier for you writing this second essay. So without further delay, here we go. Now remember, the title is considered part of the hook, right? So the title is called Poultry for POTUS. Got some alliteration there. That's the title. Then I have a subtitle, Non-Human Persons in Political Office. So you notice the title is catchy. It's got that alliteration, those P's in there, right? Then it has a colon. Then it has a subtitle, which explains what the essay will be about, right? So it's not like, if I just called it Poultry for POTUS, you'd probably be going, what? But then I read, oh, non-human persons in political office. Oh, that's an interesting argument. Okay, let's see what this person has to say. Then move on. We think the hook. Have you ever been so disgusted with a politician that you think to yourself, a beast could do a better job? Well, perhaps you're right. Now, of course, that's tongue-in-cheek, but it's still a pretty good hook. It's a shocking statement. It's jarring. People go, whoa, man, you went there. Wow, okay, I'll keep reading. Since the country's founding, 100% of all political offices have been held by human beings, and the Enlightenment experiment started by our founders now lies in ruin. Tradition greatly influences political reality, but most scarcely consider the possibility of non-human persons running for office. Moreover, many do not know that such a possibility has no legal sanctions. So what do I mean by non-human persons? That's actually a status that some countries have given to creatures like dolphins that are smart enough to be considered sentient, like almost like humans. Um, Moreover, many do not know that such a possibility has no legal sanction. In the presidential election of 2016, now remember, this is the line section, which means all of the evidence that we need to establish the thesis statement. Now, I have set up this premise of non-human persons running for political office. I gave my hook, then I set up that as an idea. Now I'm going to give some contextual information about when this has happened in the past and what the effects were. So in the presidential election of 2016, a crested rooster named Oscar Goldman filed for ballot access in all 50 states. Despite glaring credentials as the most qualified presidential hopeful in the pool, Mr. Goldman was denied ballot access on the justification that he was not a human being and therefore, in accordance with U.S. law, ineligible to hold any office. How many sentient beings with a penchant for good governance will never exercise their talents due to this senseless prohibition? Given that human underperformance constitutes the source of American political failure, laws concerning political eligibility should be amended to allow non-human persons to seek elected office, thereby opening the field to more qualified representatives and rejuvenating American politics as a whole. Now, that last bit was my thesis statement. Look, problem, given that human underperformance constitutes the source of American political failure. The problem is that the political system is failing because of the efforts of human beings. There, I've given it to you right there. So what are my solutions? Laws concerning political eligibility should be amended to allow non-human persons to seek elected office. Now that is my solution. We need to let my rooster run for president, in so many words, right? Then the final bit is the so what factor. Why should this matter? What's this going to do for us? If we make animals into politicians, how will we benefit? Thereby opening the field to more qualified representatives. Of course, you can hear my vitriol there. More qualified, like my chicken is more qualified. And rejuvenating American politics as a whole. So the so what factor is this is going to breathe life into a dying political system. Okay? So you'll notice hook, line, and sinker, problem, solution, so what, it's all there. Here we go. First topic sentence. Now, I used some big words. I thought about editing this essay because as I read it more and more and more, I realize that some of this is a little pretentious. I may edit it in the future. My apologies if some of these words are throwing you off. But problem, solution, so what for the topic sentence. As human hegemony in elected positions falsely implies Homo sapiens are the most intelligent beings on the planet. So the problem is that because humans are dominant in politics, they think they're smarter than everyone else. That's what I said. So what's the solution? Full political rights should be extended to a wide array of cognizant species. We should give political rights to the jellyfish, to the squirrels, to the chipmunks. Let's just let them all have it. And the so what factor is this is going to provide an influx of intelligence into public life. Okay, again, this is satirical. You can hear that I'm like insulting the politicians. But if you follow that, it's problem, solution, so what? If you did this for an argumentative essay, no, you wouldn't be writing a satire, but you could use that exact formula. No problem. All right, so then once we've set up the topic sentence, we need to provide evidence. So here we go. Indeed, human hubris, let me go to the next one. Hubris is pride. For those of you who don't know, places us atop the hierarchy of animal intelligence. But in Maggie Coworth Baker's article, quote, humans are dumb at figuring out how smart animals are. Maggie, that's not a good title, okay? But it's okay. She implies that attempts to rank animal intelligence are innately misguided. So what I'm doing now is I'm providing a quote from a source. Now, this particular source was from like an op-ed in a major newspaper. So it's not exactly a scholarly source, but it does show you how to integrate a source generally. You're going to be using scholarly sources from Galileo, mainly sources from academic journals, okay? So here's the quote. Experts who study animal intelligence across species say we can't rank animals by their smarts. Scientists don't even try anymore. which means there's no objective way to determine which animals would deserve more human-like rights. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying that animal intelligence, like they're below us, or we can rank animal intelligence, and these smartest animals are smarter than that, it doesn't really work that way. Scientists are starting to realize that intelligence isn't really defined in the way that we thought. Your intelligence is based on your ability to perform the tasks that you are evolutionarily slated to perform. So if you're, a really smart fish, you're not going to be doing the same things that a really smart squirrel is going to be doing. So basically, then we shouldn't use this, intelligence gradient as a way to decide who deserves rights. We should give animals rights, right? So here, Coeth Baker makes an extremely relevant point. Human beings who judge animals against a human standard invite fault into their assessment. So what I'm doing now is explaining the bloody knife, right? Given the extreme difference between various organisms on Earth, it is fundamentally skewed to imply that human skill sets and gradients of intelligence are universal. We must consider the possibility that what we interpret in animals as lesser and primitive might simply be too alien for us to grasp. Okay, the next one. Because human beings maintain brutal dominance hierarchies predicated on violence, that's the problem. Solution is extension of political power to less destructive creatures will ensure a more pleasant reality for all earthly inhabitants. Solution, so what? Here is my source. In an article for The Guardian titled, "Is This All Humans Are? Diminutive Monsters of Death and Destruction?" Wow, what a title. Columnist George Monibot correctly notes that the very age in which we live is branded by our violent impression upon it, stating, now pay attention because this is a proper block quote. Remember, if you're over 4 full lines of text, you need to have a block quote. So this is how you would do one. Also, I really only allow 1 block quote per essay because if you start doing a bunch of block quotes, it means you got a bunch of somebody else's words in there, and I want to hear from you. So here's the quote. The Anthropocene, now a popular term among scientists, is the epoch in which we live, one dominated by human impacts on the living world. Most date it from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but it might have begun much earlier, with a killing spree that commenced 2 million years ago. What rose onto its hind legs in the African savannas was, from the outset, death the destroyer of worlds. Ooh, George is quoting the Bhagavad Gita, or maybe he's quoting Oppenheimer, who was quoting the Bhagavad Gita. In any case, that's a pretty solemn quote, but it helps us prove our claim. While Monibot's statement seems hyperbolic, an extreme exaggeration, it is nevertheless true. Throughout human history, human beings carried out numerous animal extinctions and left many irreversible imprints on the natural world, including global warming and invasive civilization. Should we really trust such a rapacious and imbalanced species with the task of governance? Now, what I did there is like asking that question, like, that you're basically begging a certain answer, but you can do that kind of thing as a way, especially as a transition like that at the end of a paragraph. It can be a good way to segue into the next thing. So, final, excuse me, final body paragraph, problem, solution, so what? Given humanity's failure to maintain sustainable balance within the biosphere, allowing the election of organisms which do not habitually endanger the entire planet will promote ecological and governmental harmony, both at home and abroad. Now, you notice that all of my thesis and topic sentences, they're similar, but they're tweaked slightly. They're tweaked in terms of the language, and they kind of focus on different solutions and so what factors. So that's a way for you to get variability among those things. Here is my quote. According to NASA, now this, remember, you always have to have a lead-in statement for a quote. So don't just drop the quote out of the sky. Let me know where it comes from, right? So according to NASA, human beings have radically altered the Earth's climate, putting the entire biosphere at risk. Quote, the current warming trend is of particular significance because most of it is extremely likely, greater than 95% probability, to be the result of human activity since the mid-20th century and proceeding at a rate that is unprecedented over decades to millennia. Now here's the citation. As NASA suggests, few species in history have had quite such a profound effect on planetary vitals in such a short period of time. Should we continue to entrust political authority to a species who cannot help but threaten the very planet upon which it lives? Expanding political rights to non-human persons may well be the decision that saves the planet from a mass extinction event. Okay, so that's my final paragraph. Now, you notice I used 3 sources. I require 2 for the second essay, but I really recommend that you use 1 per paragraph and use different sources because it makes it stronger. You'll notice I did problem, solution, so what for the thesis and topic sentences. I provided evidence and I explained the bloody knife. I explained the evidence to you. So now I've done my due diligence in putting forth the argument, and this brings me to the conclusion. This conclusion will show you what I mean when I say, please do not repeat yourself in the conclusion, because this conclusion does not repeat itself. Oscar Goldman, that's my rooster, may have been denied ballot access in 2016, but that has not prevented him from working tirelessly towards a brighter future. If he succeeds in his mission to run as an independent candidate in 2020, we all stand to benefit, if not from his election, then certainly from his efforts as an activist. For millions of years, the world was under the care of animals alone, and it never before faced the kinds of problems humans have inflicted. That's not exactly true, but we'll keep it there. If we all band together to extend political rights to non-human persons, our posterity will inherit a better world. Together, we can elect Poultry for POTUS. Okay, POTUS meaning President of the United States, if I didn't make that clear earlier. So I didn't repeat myself really at all. I used that sort of framing device of Oscar Goldman and his campaign as a way to sort of give the tone of closure to my essay and make my reader satisfied with the ending, right? Oh, okay, yeah, Oscar Goldman, he's going to run for president. So there you go. That pretty much follows it. Now the works cited should technically have its own page. I think when I converted it to the PDF, it moved it up for some reason, but it should technically have its own page. Works cited. Here are all the sources. Here are all the sources, right? And this is how you do the sources. You notice the first line is left aligned, and the second and third line of each source are indented. And then when it left aligns again, that means it's a new source. And those are all the sources I have there in alphabetical order. And then this is a funny meme I made. It's just a meme. It's a joke. It's not meant to be a political statement in favor of any one party or anything. I don't believe really in any of them. But better hair than Trump. Because objectively, Oscar Goldman has better hair. Look at that. It's not a comb over. It's real. You know, there's no like hair implants or anything like that. That's his real wig. That's good stuff. Oscar Goldman 2020. So he didn't win. He's gonna have to revamp his campaign, but we hope that he'll win because he's a smart guy. You know, he would never drop a nuclear weapon because he doesn't know what they are. The only thing I am worried about, I think he might try to close Chick-fil-A just because he sees it in a different way than we do. And I think he also might try to get rid of the FDR memorial, because if you don't know, FDR famously said, promised the American people a chicken in every pot, and Oscar Goldman, he's not about that. So, all right. At least I think I'm funny. That's what matters, right? So I hope you all have enjoyed this, and now you kind of understand what's being expected a little bit more. You can see this essay in the folder for this on Blackboard, and also there is a campaign video that you can also view if you'd like to see. Back when I had way too much time on my hands, I made a video for Oscar Goldman, and I hope that you find it amusing if you decide to watch it. So with that said, have a wonderful week, and please email me with any questions.